Welcome to First Sleep Aid, calm stories to help you unwind, learn, and fall asleep. From true crime to curious facts and thoughtful ideas, always softly spoken. Subscribe now and take a deep breath. You're in good hands. Today we're doing a deep dive into the truly extraordinary life of Marie Curie.
It really is an amazing story.
She was born Maria Salomea Skłodowska back in 1867 in Warsaw. And this was a difficult time. Poland was under Russian rule.
Right, and that meant Polish culture, Polish identity was being actively suppressed. It wasn't easy.
But inside her own family home, the Skłodowskis, there was this quiet resistance. It was all about education.
Absolutely. Her parents were both teachers. Her father taught maths and physics.
And her mother.
She was a headmistress at a girls' school. So yeah, learning was absolutely central in their house. It was kind of their way of fighting back, preserving their identity when the government wouldn't allow it.
That must have laid such a crucial foundation for Marie.
No doubt. But it wasn't easy financially either. Her father lost his job, his government position, because of his Polish loyalties. That definitely shaped her early experiences.
And on top of the politics and the money worries, she faced some really deep personal losses very young.
Yeah, heartbreakingly so. Her sister Zofia died, and then her mother, Bronislawa.
Terrible blows. It's almost hard to imagine how she dealt with that. You wonder if those early tragedies somehow forged that incredible resilience she became known for.
It certainly seems that way. She had this inner strength. And despite the fact that girls just didn't have the same educational opportunities back then,
Right. Very limited.
her drive to learn was just unstoppable. She sought out knowledge wherever she could. She was even part of the Flying University.
Ah, yes, the secret university.
Exactly. These clandestine classes teaching Polish history and culture, things forbidden by the Russians. You have to admire the courage, sneaking around Warsaw just to learn.
It shows how desperate they were for real education. But her dreams went even further than Warsaw, didn't they?
Oh, yes. Paris. The Sorbonne, that was the goal. A place where she hoped her mind could truly flourish, regardless of her gender.
And this led to that amazing pact with her sister, Bronia.
Such dedication. Marie agreed to work as a governess, basically putting her own dreams on hold, to send money so Bronia could study medicine in Paris first.
With the understanding that Bronia would then help her later, incredible sisterly support.
Those years as a governess must have been so tough, though, using her intellect to teach others, but not being able to pursue her own studies.
And then there was personal heartbreak, too, right?
Yes, unrequited love with Kazimierz Żurowski. Painful, certainly. But it seems like even that setback just pushed her harder, channeling that energy into more study, more secret experiments.
But nothing could deter her for long.
Exactly. And then finally, 1891, she's 24, she packs her bags and heads to Paris.
Leaving behind everything she knew, all those constraints, for what must have felt like a world of possibility. A huge leap.
A huge leap indeed. And Paris? Well, it was a shock in some ways. Intellectually vibrant, yes, but incredibly harsh for a young woman arriving almost penniless.
Those stories of her first attic room in the Latin Quarter. Tiny, freezing cold.
Just surviving was a battle, going hungry sometimes. But her focus on her studies at the Sorbonne? Absolutely relentless.
And it paid off spectacularly.
Isn't it just? Graduating first in physics in 1893,
First.
and then second in mathematics the next year, 1894, all while learning French, adapting to a new culture.
And dealing with professors who were, let's say, skeptical about women in science.
That's putting it mildly. The bias was definitely there, but her results spoke for themselves.
Still, even with those degrees, finding opportunities for actual research wasn't straightforward for a woman then.
No, not at all. Assisting roles, maybe? But Marie didn't just want to assist. She wanted to discover. She had that driving curiosity.
And that drive led her to Pierre Curie.
Ah, yes. A meeting of minds, truly. They just clicked on an intellectual level, spoke the same language of science, of inquiry, of wonder.
Their courtship sounds quite unique, not exactly typical dates.
No. More like intense discussions about magnetism, crystals, the nature of things. That was their romance. Shared intellectual passion.
So they get married, a simple civil ceremony in July 1895.
And their honeymoon. A cycling trip. Still observing the natural world, probably taking notes. Just shows where their hearts were.
It really does. And then comes Marie's big decision for her doctorate.
Right. She chooses to investigate these mysterious rays recently discovered by Henri Becquerel coming from uranium salts. Nobody really knew what they were.
And her hypothesis was radical, wasn't it?
Absolutely groundbreaking. She suggested these rays weren't due to some chemical reaction or outside energy source, but came from within the atom itself, an atomic property. That was a huge conceptual leap.
But the place where they started this revolutionary work, it was anything but state of the art.
Oh, far from it. It was basically a shed.
Okay.
Drafty, leaky, completely unequipped for delicate scientific work, let alone handling potentially hazardous materials.
No safety measures, no proper ventilation.
None. They were working with tons of pitchblende ore, which they suspected was even more radioactive than pure uranium. Yeah. Grueling physical work in terrible conditions.
And completely unaware, really, of the dangers they were exposing themselves to day after day. That dedication is just staggering.
It really is. But amidst all that hardship, imagine seeing that faint bluish glow starting to appear in the darkness of their lab.
Radium.
Radium. A little ghostly light. Must have felt almost magical. A sign they were onto something truly profound.
Their marriage, it clearly went beyond the personal. It was this deep intellectual collaboration.
You could just picture them, can't you? Evenings spent not at social events, but hunched over notebooks, talking science, planning experiments, their minds working together.
And that core idea of Marie's, that the rays were atomic, that really set the direction.
It was the key insight. So the next logical step was, okay, if pitchblende is more radioactive than the uranium it accounts for, there must be something else in there, something new causing it.
And they set out to find it.
Yes, isolate these unknown elements.
Yeah.
Which, given their lab or lack thereof,
The shed again.
the shed. It meant back-breaking manual labor, processing literally tons of this pitchblende ore, grinding, dissolving, separating, painstaking work.
And then success. 1898.
First, polonium, named of course after Poland, a very personal touch for Marie, linking her homeland to her scientific breakthrough.
A powerful statement.
And then, later that same year, the big one, radium. And its properties were just bizarre, astonishing at the time.
Emitting heat, light.
Seemingly out of nothing. And penetrating matter, it hinted at this enormous, untapped energy source locked inside atoms. Completely changed the game.
You mentioned that glow they saw. Imagine the lab at night, lit by these little vials of radium salts. Surreal.
Must have been utterly awe-inspiring. And yet, despite the potential value of these discoveries,
They refused to patent them.
right, they believed scientific knowledge should belong to everyone. An incredibly principled stand, especially considering they weren't wealthy. It
Yeah.
allowed research to just explode worldwide.
Which leads to the Nobel Prize in Physics, 1903, shared with Becquerel.
Yes. But initially, the committee only nominated Becquerel and Pierre.
Really? They almost left Marie out.
They did. It took Pierre insisting, absolutely demanding, that Marie's essential contribution be recognized. He wouldn't accept it without her.
Good for him, making her the first woman ever to win a Nobel Prize. A huge milestone.
Absolutely huge. But even with the prize money, they didn't exactly rush out and buy a mansion.
No, it went straight back into the research, didn't it? Buying supplies, maybe hiring an assistant.
Exactly, their focus never wavered. Although, tragically, the work was already taking a toll. Those early signs of what we now know as radiation sickness were appearing: burns, fatigue.
They just didn't understand the risks back then.
Nobody did.
Yeah.
And Marie, especially, still faced so much skepticism just for being a woman in that world,
How did she handle that?
with meticulous, undeniable work. Her experiments were rigorous, her results irrefutable. That was her answer to the prejudice. Plus, she was juggling motherhood, too. Their second daughter, Eve, was born in 1904.
An incredible balancing act. Their partnership truly opened up a new frontier in science, revealing the power hidden within the atom.
Changed everything. And yet, they remained, by all accounts, remarkably humble people, awed by what they were finding.
So that initial mystery, why was pitchblende so much more radioactive than pure uranium? That was the starting point.
Exactly. That discrepancy couldn't be explained by current knowledge. It had to mean something new was present.
And the process to find it? You described the manual labor, the grinding, dissolving, endless chemical separations. It sounds exhausting just thinking about it.
It was incredibly demanding. Marie's background in chemistry was crucial here, the systematic separations, and Pierre's physics expertise came in with his electrometer.
Ah, the device to measure the radioactivity precisely.
Exactly, highly sensitive. It allowed them to track which chemical fraction contained the active substance. It was a perfect blend of their skills.
Then came polonium, named for Poland. That must have felt significant for her connecting back home.
Deeply significant, I'm sure. But the radioactivity was still higher in other fractions. The hunt wasn't over.
Leading them to radium. And the quantities involved were just mind-boggling.
Tons and tons of industrial waste residue from pitch blende processing, just to eventually isolate a fraction of a gram of radium salts. The persistence required is almost unbelievable.
And all this time, their health is quietly suffering. The constant exposure.
It's the tragic irony, isn't it? They're making these world-changing discoveries while the very thing they're studying is harming them.
But imagine the sheer wonder of finally seeing those purified radium salts, glowing with that eerie light in their dark lab.
A truly defining moment. Proof of something completely new to science. It must have felt like touching the unknown.
And the scientific community started to take notice, right? Despite some initial doubts.
Yes, the evidence was becoming undeniable. Their papers published in 1898 announcing polonium and then radium sent shockwaves through the physics and chemistry worlds.
Though, as you said, the recognition wasn't always fair. Some people tried to downplay Marie's role.
Unfortunately, yes. The old biases. Crediting Curie more, or seeing her as just an assistant, it makes her achievements even more remarkable in context.
Then came her doctoral thesis in 1903. It wasn't just a formality, was it?
Oh no, it was considered a masterpiece, a brilliant synthesis of years of groundbreaking work, probably one of the most significant doctoral theses ever submitted.
And the Nobel Prize followed that same year, with Pierre stepping up to make sure she was included.
A crucial moment of solidarity and recognition.
And true to form, they stayed modest, plowed the money back into the lab.
Their dedication was just absolute, and the impact of what they'd found. It wasn't just theoretical. Radium quickly found applications, particularly in medicine, the beginnings of radiotherapy. And of course, it opened up the whole field of atomic physics. A new age had dawned.
Fame, when it came, wasn't exactly welcomed, was it? It seemed to bring more problems than benefits for the Curies.
They were fundamentally private people, dedicated to their lab work, suddenly being thrust into the spotlight, constant attention from scientists, the press, the public. It was a huge disruption.
The 1903 Nobel Prize obviously magnified that massively. Marie, the first woman laureate. Huge news.
Huge news, but also, as we mentioned, accompanied by that undercurrent of some people minimizing her role. Must have been frustrating, even amidst the honor.
And all this fame, these demands on their time, it pulled them away from the research they loved.
Exactly. They just wanted to be left alone to work. And layered on top of this was their declining health. The radiation effects were becoming more pronounced, adding physical strain to the mental pressure.
Pierre did get a professorship at the Sorbonne in 1904, which finally gave them a proper lab, right?
Yes, a bit more resource, a dedicated space.
Yeah.
And their daughter Eve was born that year too. A time of mixed blessings, perhaps. More stability, but also more responsibilities, more public visibility.
Pierre seemed particularly uncomfortable with public life.
Very much so. He just wasn't suited to it, preferred quiet contemplation and research.
And then the unthinkable happened. April 1906.
Such a sudden, brutal tragedy. Pierre, crossing a busy Paris street in the rain, lost in thought perhaps, stepped out and was hit by a horse-drawn carriage. Killed instantly.
Just devastating. For Marie, losing not just her husband, but her closest scientific collaborator, the silence in that lab after years of partnership, unimaginable.
The grief must have been overwhelming. Her private journals from that time apparently show the depth of her despair.
Yet somehow she found the strength to carry on. Her response was extraordinary.
Truly, the Sorbonne offered her Pierre's professorship to continue his lectures, a position never before held by a woman.
And she accepted. Became the first female professor at the Sorbonne.
A courageous, powerful decision, a way to honor Pierre's legacy and assert her own place.
That first lecture she gave, stepping up to the podium and apparently picking up right where Pierre's last lecture notes had left off, what a moment.
Symbolic, wasn't it? Showing her determination to continue their shared work, her unbreakable spirit.
And she didn't just teach, she continued groundbreaking research.
Yes, focusing on isolating radium in its pure metallic form, which was incredibly difficult. She finally achieved it in 1910.
A major scientific feat in its own right, cementing her reputation, independent of Pierre now. Her fame was entirely her own.
Undeniably. But the cost, emotionally and physically, of everything she'd been through, the relentless work, the grief, the constant exposure, it was immense.
After Pierre's death, her focus just seemed to narrow, didn't it? Laser-like concentration on research and raising her two daughters.
It became her world, work and family, an incredible commitment to both.
And her scientific standing just kept growing, leading to something unprecedented.
Her second Nobel Prize, this time in chemistry in 1911, absolutely unique, awarded for the discovery of radium and polonium and the isolation of pure radium.
The only person ever to win Nobels in two different scientific fields. Still true today, I believe.
I think so, yes. Just monumental. But ironically, this moment of ultimate scientific triumph coincided with a period of intense personal turmoil.
Ah, the Langevin affair.
Yes. A relationship developed between Marie and fellow physicist Paul Langevin, who was married but separated, when letters between them were leaked to the press.
It turned into a vicious public scandal.
Vicious is the word. The French press, particularly the right-wing papers, were brutal, fueled by xenophobia, painting her as the foreign woman destroying a French family, and sheer misogyny. It was appalling.
Attacking her character, demanding she leave France, how did she cope with that?
With incredible dignity and defiance, actually. Right when the scandal was raging, she was due to go to Stockholm to accept her second Nobel. People urged her not to go.
But she went.
She went, stood tall, accepted the prize, and gave a speech focused entirely on the science, on Pierre's contributions and the discoveries themselves, refusing to let the scandal diminish the work.
Incredible strength. But it must have taken a toll.
Oh, undoubtedly. Afterwards, she did retreat more into her work, into a kind of solitude, pouring her energy into establishing the Radium Institute in Paris.
Her vision for a dedicated research center.
Exactly. A place for fundamental research into radioactivity, but also for exploring its medical applications, particularly for cancer treatment. That became her driving passion.
And she mentored people there.
Yes, training a new generation of scientists, including her daughter Irene, who followed in her footsteps, all while continuing her own experiments, despite her obviously deteriorating health for the years of radiation.
So the scandal didn't crush her spirit, ultimately. Maybe even harden her resolve.
It seems that way. Science was her refuge, her purpose. It saw her through the grief, the attacks, everything. It remained her constant guide.
Then comes 1914. The world changes dramatically with the outbreak of World War I. And Marie Curie changes too.
She really does. The secluded scientist steps onto a much more public national stage. She immediately saw how her scientific knowledge could help.
Specifically X-rays, right?
Yes. X-rays were known, but not widely used in medicine yet, especially not near battlefields. She realized they could be revolutionary for locating bullets and shrapnel in wounded soldiers, guiding surgeons, saving lives and limbs.
And she didn't just suggest it, she made it happen.
She threw herself into it, designing mobile X-ray units, basically equipping cars and vans with X-ray machines and generators. These became known as petites Curies.
Little Curies. And she got hands-on.
Completely. Learned to drive, learned basic auto mechanics, learned to operate and troubleshoot the X-ray equipment herself. She wasn't asking anyone to do something she couldn't do.
How many did she set up?
She oversaw the creation of about 20 of these mobile units, and crucially, she trained women to run them. Over 150 female radiology technicians.
Empowering women again, even in wartime.
Absolutely. And she didn't just organize it from Paris. She went to the front lines herself.
Into the danger zones.
Yes, driving these petites Curies, operating the equipment in field hospitals, often under very dangerous conditions. A stark contrast to the cryot lab. It was raw, immediate life and death work.
She also set up training courses.
Right, France's first military radiology training program. Spreading the knowledge, making the technology more accessible. Yet, official recognition for all this effort was slow.
That seems unbelievable given the impact.
It does. But by the war's end, it's estimated that her radiological service had helped treat over 1 million wounded soldiers. 1 million.
Just incredible. But again, at great personal cost to her health, the intense work, the added radiation exposure.
It definitely accelerated her decline. When the war ended, she returned to Paris, exhausted, but determined to get the Radium Institute fully operational again.
Her focus shifted back to the Institute.
Yes, but perhaps with a renewed emphasis, envisioning it not just for pure research, but very much as a center for cancer treatment, for healing.
The war must have reinforced the dual nature of science, its power for destruction, but also for immense good.
You have to think so. And Marie clearly dedicated her remaining years to the healing side of radioactivity.
She also became an advocate for international science.
Yes, promoting cooperation between scientists across borders, mentoring young researchers, looking towards a future built on shared knowledge.
So, after the war, Marie Curie's focus remained firmly on science, but very much geared towards its positive applications for humanity.
Absolutely. The Radium Institute really embodied that. It became this major center, buzzing with research, but also directly involved in developing cancer therapies, a place of hope.
And did she finally embrace her fame a bit more, or still reluctant?
Still fundamentally modest, it seems. Her focus was always the work. But she did understand that her status could help the cause. She began to accept some public engagement, some honors, if she felt it could inspire others or raise funds for research.
Like the trip to the United States in 1921.
Exactly. That was huge. American women organized this massive campaign to raise money to buy her a gram of pure radium for her research, which was incredibly expensive.
A gram of radium. What was the reception like in the U.S.?
Overwhelming. Cheering crowds, meetings with dignitaries. President Harding presented the radium to her at the White House. She was treated like scientific royalty, even if she herself found the fuss a bit bewildering.
But that radium allowed for more vital work back in Paris.
Oh, yes. She continued overseeing research, particularly refining radiation therapy techniques. And she saw her own legacy continuing through her daughter, Irene,
Who also became a brilliant scientist.
and eventually a Nobel laureate herself, along with her husband, Frederick Joliot, for their discovery of artificial radioactivity, an incredible family achievement.
And her other daughter, Eve, wrote the famous biography.
Yes, Madame Curie, which brought Marie's story, the human story behind the science, to millions around the world. Made her relatable, not just an icon.
But all those years, all that exposure, it finally caught up with her.
Tragically, yes. Her health had been failing for years. She suffered from chronic fatigue, cataracts, worsening symptoms. In 1934, she was diagnosed with aplastic anemia.
Caused by the radiation damaging her bone marrow.
Precisely. Her body just couldn't produce enough blood cells anymore. She passed away in July 1934.
A life dedicated to uncovering radioactivity, ultimately claimed by it.
A poignant end. She was initially buried alongside Pierre, but later, in the huge national honor, their remains were moved to the Pantheon in Paris.
The final resting place for France's greatest citizens.
A fitting tribute. And even today, her notebooks, her papers, even some of her furniture, they're still radioactive. Too dangerous to handle without protection. A tangible reminder of her life's work.
Her legacy is just vast, isn't it?
Mm.
Expanding the periodic table, essentially founding the field of radiotherapy, breaking down so many barriers for women.
And doing it all with this quiet determination, this integrity. A spirit of reason, but also deep compassion.
Her influence clearly didn't end with her death. It continues to resonate.
Absolutely. Through her daughters, Irene carrying on the scientific torch, Eve sharing her story, and through the Curie Institute itself, still a world-leading center for cancer research and treatment today.
But beyond the tangible institutions and discoveries, what do you see as her most enduring legacy?
For me, it's the spirit she embodied. The idea that scientific discovery isn't just about being clever, it's a moral endeavor. It comes with responsibility.
The responsibility of knowledge.
Exactly. And the importance of humility in the face of the unknown, and compassion in applying that knowledge. Especially in the 20th century, when science unlocked such terrifying power alongside its benefits.
Her focus always seemed to remain on the healing, the constructive side.
Unwaveringly. Yes, there are elements named after her, institutes, awards, but her real impact is in the inspiration she provides for generations of scientists, men and women, who see in her the ideal of pursuing knowledge for the betterment of humanity.
Her life really does capture that fundamental human drive, doesn't it? To understand the world and to try and make it a little better.
Perfectly put. The light she first saw glowing in that shed, it truly endures. In labs, in hospitals, and I think in the aspirations of anyone who believes in the power of dedicated ethical science.